Hello, Amy Watson. That's very kind of you to say good evening. That's a lovely start to things. Hope the weather's good in sunny Greenock this morning or this evening. Welcome. Special mention to anybody. There are one or two of you who've been on the National Junior Team weekend at Stirling. Can't get enough of me signing up for a session on a Sunday night. I'm delighted to see you here. So that's fantastic. Hope you've enjoyed yourself. More importantly, it's a very warm welcome to our two presenters this evening. John Twynham is his real name, but we know him as JT, and I think he prefers to be known as JT because that's what's on his screen. JT is the lead physiotherapist for Scottish Swimming. He's employed by the Sport Scotland Institute of Sport, and he is our lead physio with the national senior team with the national programme, in fact. Was with us at the Commonwealth Games in 2018, and he's not long returned from Tokyo, where he was part of the British Olympic team support staff. So delighted to welcome JT, and he is going to be ably assisted, although to be fair, he's going to be second fiddle, if you like, to Stephen Milne, who's going to do most of the demonstrating of the practical stuff. Stephen, as I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, will know, as an Olympic, World, European, Commonwealth medalist in his own right as a swimmer. He's based now at the University of Stirling. And if he's looking slightly better tanned than he was a few weeks ago, it's because he's just back from Tenerife on a training camp with his colleagues at Stirling there. And as is the case, I'm going to hand over to JT and Stephen to take us through this. There will be support materials as well as the recording following this evening, which is great because it's something that we really need to make sure that everybody's doing and doing well, and that is their land preparation for swimming. So have a great evening. We'll have time maybe for some questions later on, but I'm going to hand you over to JT and Stephen, and everybody have a good time. Enjoy yourselves. All yours.
Thanks, Alan, and thanks for the introduction. Just like to say welcome to everybody. I'm going to let Stephen talk as well so that you don't have to listen to my boring voice the whole time. But listen, this is to try and be as informative and interesting as possible, and more about education than just taking you through through a list of things to do. So, you know, just, you don't have to take part. You can if you want to, but it might be easier just to sit and listen. And really what we want to try and do is instill a little bit of philosophy, and it'd be good to get Stephen's views on what we're going to be talking now about as an athlete, and also as a star pupil when it comes to physical preparation in terms of looking after himself and making sure he's in the best place he can. So in essence, that's what this session is about. It's titled pre-pool or land warm-up or whatever you want to call it. Pre-pool is a nice, easy thing, but it's kind of what does it mean and why do we do it? And then there's also this word of post-pool as well. And really, like, we just want to kind of make this a broadest statement as possible without making you think you have to do exactly this and exactly that. Pre-pool or land prep is all about getting your body ready for what you're about to do in the pool, so that your first stroke is of best quality, and you don't need 400, 600 or 800 meters to activate everything. So if you like, pre-pool is about activating, getting the body ready, and preparing you for what you're about to do. And that could be competition, it could be training, or it can be a standalone session. And the other thing about pre-pool is it's a real opportunity to develop the things we're not good at. And what we always try and do is link a lot of those things to swimming. If we take what I do with the senior team, we try and individualize pre-pool according to what they're trying to work on in the pool. So if they're trying to improve underwater kick, for example, then we'll put exercises into the pre-pool that will help challenge that, develop it, and help increase the awareness of that area. So it has lots of connotations or lots of uses, but the primary two are help to reduce injury, because if your body works better and it's switched on better, it's under less pressure. And if we're always working on things we're not good at, we're going to be a lot more resilient. And resilience is the key term here. So that you can keep training, keep doing the things that you want to do, and just make yourself all round better. The best analogy I can give you is like learning a foreign language. Those of you at school might not really enjoy foreign languages, but if you think about it, when you're learning a different language, you need to learn all the individual words. You need to build your vocabulary. When you've got a really broad vocabulary, then you're able to speak really well in that language, or you have good literacy in that language. And therefore you can converse or speak in many different areas. You can order sweets from the shop. You can get on a bus and ask them where you're going. You can tell your mum and dad you need a bit of space, or whatever it might be. If your only phrase is, "Can I please have sweets from the shop?" then when you're trying to get a bus to the shop, you're going to struggle a little bit. And movement's the same. The more individual movements you have, the more your movement vocabulary is increased, and therefore your physical competency or your physical literacy is greater, and your ability to cope with the physical environment is going to be much better. So that helps reduce injury, but also helps you cope with the unexpected. So that, in short, is the essence of it. The way I try to phrase pre-pull, to make it really simple, are the three elements to it, and that is release, mobilize, and activate, and you do it in that sequence. Now, release is something that all swimmers, from what I see, are very good at, because release involves sitting on a foam roller. And majority of pre-pull, I see folk, and this is not just the younger guys, it's the older guys too, lying on a foam roller, usually on your phone, texting your mates or doing whatever. You know, it's a big culture within swimming, is foam rolling, and it has a really good place. But we want to do that first, and it wants to be one element. And you only want to spend a couple of minutes working on the areas that you feel are tight. After that, what you want to do is take all the body areas, so shoulders as an example, hips as another, you want to mobilize them. So that means taking them through their range. So shoulder, for example, getting it all the way up and all the way back down. It can be across the way or out the way. It doesn't matter. It's literally just actively moving your joint through the range of movement, not the kind of static stretching you will see your parents doing when they're getting ready for their run or whatever. It's just nice controlled movement. That way you're taking the joint as far as it can be. You're using muscle and control to do that. And then the final bit, which is the activate, is about trying to stimulate certain muscles, trying to switch them on, if you like. That can be muscles around the shoulder, muscles around the hip, or even muscles around the back. So if we do it in that sequence, we release, we make everything nice and loose. Then we let the body know we need to kind of move a little bit, and then we try and switch everything on. So then when we get in the water, hopefully everything's as switched on as we can be, and therefore your stroke, your first kind of pull in the water, first kick, is a little bit better quality than it would have been without that. So, you know, time-wise, it only takes 10-15 minutes. That's all you need to do. 10-15 minutes done a few times a week, you'll be amazed at how much you can improve some of your movement. And certainly that's our expectation at the senior program, is about 15 minutes before they get into the water, they do pre-pull. And as I said, it's a little bit targeted. Some of it isn't, it's just a generic. We know shoulders are problems, lats are problems, those kind of things. Don't get too hung up on it. It's just about thinking about the positions you need to get into the pool, thinking about the movements you use in the pool, and trying to get your body a little bit used to that. So I don't want to talk too much about that. What we're going to do, and I'm going to let Stephen speak a little bit more in a minute, just about his reflections of pre-pull. But what we're going to do is I'm going to take you through some self-checks, so ways you can see if you feel tight or restricted or whatever it might be. Stephen's going to do an excellent job of demonstrating. And then after that, I'm going to take you through shoulder, hip, and back, and just show you some examples of how to mobilize and how to activate through that. So before we do that, and again, don't worry about writing this down or anything. That's being recorded, and our plan is after this as well, we'll have a standalone resource of some exercises with pictures, maybe even some videos, so you can pick and choose based on what you think you need to work on or what your coach thinks you need to work on. So let me give Stephen a chance to speak, and I'll be quiet for a little bit, and then we'll go through the self-checks. So over to you, Stephen.
Yeah, there we are. So, well, you basically covered everything there, JT, but the only thing I would say is the thing about the nature of aquatic sport is you're suspended in water. So you absolutely need to do land training because you're suspended. It's weight bearing, there's no weight. So you need to have the land training so that you can do the rest of developing as an athlete as opposed to just the sports person in your sport. So that's why it's essential that we do the stretching and we do the physical prep, because in the water, you don't have a way of causing resistance other than the water, and you're suspended. That's why you need to do it. And yeah, I mean, it's something that you'll see all seniors do, and whether it's individualized for their specific needs or whether they do something generic, as JT says, we always do something because it's also an opportunity to learn. And there's always stuff you can learn and grow from, but you need to get the body ready before you hit the water to be in the best prep, because as I says, it's non-weight bearing sport. So the only way to activate your muscles is what you do outside of the water. So you can optimize being in the water. And that's all I had to say about that. Back to you, JT.
I'll mute myself. I think what we'll do then is we'll just kind of crack on. I don't want to make it too long and too painful for everyone. I want it to be as useful as possible. So if we could get the screen sort of pinned onto Stephen, if that's possible, make him the spotlight, great. We're going to go through some of these exercises, and I'm going to talk Stephen through it. And Stephen will confess he's not the most amazing at some of these exercises. So it's not being perfect, and like we said, it's about finding the things you're not good at and working on those. It's easy to do the things we're good at, but you need the whole plethora, the whole sort of sphere to get to be improving all the time. So let's get started with the self checks, because I think these are super helpful in terms of what we can do. So the first one is about flexibility into streamline. So what you want to do is find yourself a wall, as Stephen has found, put your back flat against the wall and just move your feet just about a foot space away from the wall. So your feet are just a little bit away from the wall. And then you're going to try and put your head and your whole spine flat against the wall. This just stops us cheating and moving our back. And then you're going to put one hand on top of the other as though you're going to go into streamline. Good. And then you're going to raise your arms, keeping your elbows nice and straight, all the way up overhead, as far as you can go, and hopefully you touch the wall. And actually, you'll be amazed at how many swimmers really struggle with this movement, okay? So this is a measure of flexibility, and as you can see, it's really important for streamlining into the body. If you let that gap come away from the wall, you can achieve streamline, but what you're doing then, exactly like Stephen's showing, is you're using your back, and that isn't always that helpful. It puts a lot of strain onto your back. And Stephen's almost starting to undulate there and show us some of the qualities of underwater kick. So if you can't touch the wall, you know you're tight through your shoulders, and predominantly you could say your lats, which are the big muscles down the side that pull, and your back, okay? So you want to try and get as close to the wall there as possible. If you can't touch the wall, you need to work on it. If you can touch the wall, you don't need to work on it, all right? The next movement is exactly the same position, but it's going to check shoulder rotation. So what you do is move your arms out to the side, just as Stephen's showing, and then you're going to keep your elbows bent and rotate the back of your hands towards the wall, okay? And you're going to try and get the backs of your hands flat against the wall. This is quite important for catch position. So it ties in with streamline. So chances are, if you can't streamline very well, then you're going to struggle with this. But it's just another example of showing you what rotation should look like. So that's rotation in one direction. Stephen's pretty good. And then you're going to rotate in the other direction. And what you're really looking for are arms even. And you want to really get them past about 45 degrees. Stephen's pretty flexible in the shoulder. There are some people that can get their palms onto the wall, but I assure you that's few and far between and not necessary. That's people who are very mobile. You want to make sure when you're doing this that your shoulders stay flat against the wall, you're not arching up. So again, a good check around your actual shoulder joint, just to see how flexible that is and how it feels. And you can check that before each session, before you do your pre-pull, and that will guide you what to do. Or you could even do it once or twice a week as a monitor to see how things are going. All right. Now, next one, we're going to go into kind of lying for these ones. So Stephen is going to sit with his legs out in front of him as he adjusts his camera onto his mat. And he's just going to test how long his hamstrings are. So you're going to put your feet right out in front of you, you're going to bend from the hips and reach as far forward as you can. Good. And again, Stephen, pretty good that he can grab his toes. I definitely can't do that. All right. If you struggle with that, that's fine. Just mark where you are. And you can even use the thing like a towel around your feet to kind of pull yourself a little bit forward. And then that you're not only testing, but you're helping to increase the mobility there. All right. So that's the first one in terms of hamstring in lying. Next one then, Stephen is going to roll over onto his stomach. Now we're going to do a same streamline exercise. So Stephen's going to put his forehead on the ground, hands flat down. Okay, he's going to put one hand on top of the other, and then he's going to keep everything flat, and he's going to raise both hands up as far as he can. Great. Now Stephen again has got an excellent streamline. So we're measuring streamline, but this time that's a reflection of the strength in the back of the shoulders. So what you find sometimes is people in standing can put their hands flat against the wall, but when we ask them to do this in lying, they can't do it. So that's not about flexibility, it's about strength. So what I would say is, if you can't touch the back of the wall in standing, work on that first, and then worry about this. If you're really good at getting your hands flat against the wall, then look at this. And if you really struggle to get your arms up past your ears, then that's something you need to work on. And you can just practice that as a movement to work on it. Or if you put your hands slightly apart, that makes it a little bit easier. But again, we'll go through the exercises for all of this. Next exercise, Stephen's going to go up onto his hands and knees. Okay. And then he's going to put his left hand behind his head. Good. And he's going to sit down so his bum is on his heels. Great. And then keep that other hand on the floor, Stephen. And then he's going to rotate his elbow up to the sky. All the way up, all the way up. Good. Keep going, keep going, keep going. Excellent. And what you want to be able to do is see the ceiling without turning your neck. So that's pretty good. And then you change hands. Yeah, good. There we go. See, Stephen's almost in a straight line with his arms. That's very, very good. So that's kind of what you're aiming for, is to try and get those arms in a straight line like that. Okay. So that's measuring the mobility of the middle part of your back. Another key ingredient to getting you into streamline and into good catch position, and also to help with the reach of the catch. Okay, next exercise is hip flexion. So how well can you bend your hips? And the best way to measure this, actually, Stephen, if you show us your squat. So stand sideways, and then feet just about shoulder width apart and feet slightly turned out, and let's see how far you can get down. Good. Now what we're looking for here is how straight Stephen's back is and how far he can get his bum to the ground without collapsing forwards. And that's not perfect, but it's pretty good. You can see he's working quite hard. Okay. If you come back up, Stephen, and then if you do it badly, so if you let your knees travel far forward and then really bend your upper body forward, so you're kind of falling forward, you'll see what kind of not great. Yeah, just drop your head down a little bit and see how his heels are coming up, really struggling to get down. So that's kind of what it would look like. If you turn face onto the camera and then do another good squat, good, you'll just see nice parallel legs, and that's really good mobility for the back of your hips. So what we call hip flexion, so bending your hips, really, really good. And if you look at that, that looks a little bit like turning on the wall. All right, well done, Stephen. Okay, and then the final one is hip extension, which is a bit of a lunge. So this is what Stephen was preparing for, one in front of the other, and just push forwards. And can you keep your upper body upright as you get your kneeling leg to go backwards? And again, that's pretty good, Stephen. So I know from Stephen that he's got a little bit of tightness in the back of his hips. That makes his hip flexion a little bit tight, something that he needs to work on. That puts a bit of pressure onto his back. So part of a lot of what Stephen does in pre-pool is to work on those areas to help improve the strength and stability around there. Otherwise, he's very, very good. Doesn't need to do much around his shoulders because he's good there. So Stephen focuses a lot on his hips. And that's what you'll find. Some people have good shoulder mobility, poor hip mobility. Some of us, myself included, are just generally poor in flexibility, so have to work really well. And some people are super mobile. And that's why we want to include the activation and the mobilization in the pre-pool. Because if you're super mobile, you don't need to be rolling on a foam roller very much because you've got the mobility already. Okay, so that is our group of key tests that I feel like when those things aren't good, they usually lead to problems. All right, so again, what we try and do is put those in some pictures and show you that as a self-check. Okay, so now, very quickly, without kind of boring you, we're going to run through some of the exercises that would help fix those. And all I've done, we're not going to do any foam rolling because I think everyone's pretty good at that and it's pretty self-explanatory. Think of a tight area and then go through it. We're going to work through the shoulder. We're going to do some mobility, then some activation. Feel free to follow along. I'll talk you through it, or just sit and watch if you want, okay? And again, you'll see some of these things look a little bit like the test exercises. So if you're not good at something, just practice it and you'll get a little bit better over and over. So Stephen, can you lie down onto your back for me? And this is the shoulder rotation. So the way you were standing against the wall, testing your shoulder rotation, you're going to do the same thing now. Elbows flat onto the ground, out to the side, and then you're just going to slowly rotate backwards, hands towards the floor. So the beauty of this is you're trying to keep your back flat on the floor, and gravity is actually helping you. You can even put your water bottle into your hand and then move backwards and then move forwards all the way so your palms go towards the ground. If you find that really difficult to keep your back flat onto the floor, you can bend your knees up so your feet are flat on the floor. So if you just bend your knees there, Stephen, that'll take some of the pressure off your lower back and make it a little bit easier. So again, nice mobility, nice and slow the way Stephen's doing it, about 2 to 3 seconds in each direction for any of these movements. Just makes it slow, controlled, and deliberate. Okay, that's shoulder rotation. Now, if you stay in that position, Stephen, but try and put the back of your hands flat against the floor. So rotate your hands so they go right down onto the floor, back of the hands on the floor. Yeah, that's it, keep going. Once you're in that position, this is called a wall angel or a floor angel in this case. You're going to slide your hands up over your head, keeping the back of your hand and forearm in contact with the floor. And you're running out of space there a little bit, but that's fine. And that's just opening out the front of your chest. Slide back again. And then if we just show everyone what that looks like in standing. So just go against the wall. I think we'll see you, Stephen, actually. You can even lie down, sit against the wall and do it. Yep, perfect. In the arrest position, as it looks like, hands in the air, and then sliding up like that. And those of us that struggle with Streamline and the rotation up the way will find this quite hard, and you'll feel it through the middle of your back and through your chest. So that's where it kind of looks a bit like an angel opening the wings. All right, good. Back onto the floor for us, Stephen, and I can see you, so yeah, just drop that camera down. Great, so onto your stomach. Okay, now, oh, sorry, can you just grab your foam roller, Stephen? This is about mobilizing your shoulder, and this is really important for the catch position, okay? So forehead down. All Stephen's doing there is relaxing his hand and shoulder, and then he's just going to push his hand as far away from his shoulder as he can. And that just moves his shoulder blade up, and this is such an important position to get into swimming. If you can't do this very well, you're going to struggle with keeping your elbow high in the catch, and you'll end up pulling at your upper traps or shrugging your shoulder and dropping your elbow. So good exercise to practice. Okay, so you just do that one hand at a time, swap over. All right. And then the final mobility is in standing. You're going to, this is for lats. You can find a door handle or backstroke post is quite good. That's fine there, Stephen. We can see you, so don't worry. Right, good. And then just going to find something that doesn't move. Stephen's just using the chair as demonstration. You're going to grab hold of it and then lean backwards. And you should feel that all down the side of the arm that's holding on to whatever it is. Can be a door frame, can be a door handle. Make sure it's a door that closes when you pull on it, not opens when you pull on it, or you could have a disaster. Or, you know, the flags for the backstroke, the posts for those can be quite good at the pool. There we go, using the door. Using a partner, opposite arms, partner stretching, doing that. Really good one for getting your lats. And as you can see, helping your streamline and catch position, okay? So that's just a few mobility for the shoulder. Now we're just gonna go through some activation. The easiest and simple and the best one, but you'll be surprised how many of us find it difficult, is a push-up, okay? If you find full push-ups difficult, go onto your knees, super easy. Now, if you watch Stephen, the way he does his push-ups, he keeps his elbows nice and close into his side and his body nice and straight. And look, he's not shrugging at the shoulders. That's really important. So you're using all of your back and all the muscles that control your shoulder blade. They're working really hard to control that. As I said, if you find that hard, just drop to your knees. And you want to have nice, good quality of movement. Don't worry about how many you do. Just make sure the quality of movement is very good. Okay? Next exercise, probably better if you face us straight away, Stephen, head on to us, and you go into a press-up position. So just hold this. This is called a press-up plank or a press-up start position, and you're just going to tap one hand off the other. Those of you that find it really hard, just make your feet wider to increase your base of support. If you're really good, you can do it on one leg. Well, that does switches on your core a little bit, but it really switches on the shoulders. Okay. Then if you go sideways onto us again, Stephen, and you're going to go into that same press-up plank position. And then what you're going to do is you're going to raise your hips up to the ceiling and push your head between your shoulders. In yoga, they call this a downward dog. And again, Stephen's got great shoulder flexibility to really move. So don't worry about how far you move, but what you're doing is you're moving your shoulders through range and then come back into the press-up position, Stephen. And your shoulder muscles are working all through that range. You can even drop your hips to the floor to take it the other way. Good, that's it. Good. So you move from one position to the other, okay? That's called a plank to downward dog. Now I'm going to show you a plank to side plank. So go back into that plank position. Again, don't worry if you find this really hard. You can do it on your knees and just rotating round. Nice and easy. Stephen makes it look too easy. I would be struggling with that, okay? Good, well done. Next and final one then, I think just do this in kneeling, Stephen, and we'll be able to see you without having to get up. Take a water bottle or a band or a small weight, whatever it is, okay? And a real way to do this, turn the water bottle upside down. Good. And then go into kneeling. So come up onto your knees, just for, normally you do this in standing, but just so we can see Stephen's height. And then all you're going to do is bring your arm out to the side. Good. And bend your elbow so it's nice and close to your body. And then you're just going to push that straight over your head to try and get into the Statue of Liberty pose. All the way over, all the way over, all the way over. Good. And then slowly back down again. So just pushing up. You can move to the side. You can do it in front. You can try and go behind. The more unstable the weight, the harder it is. You could do that by standing on a resistance band and pushing overhead as well. That would make it difficult. It's just trying to switch on those shoulder muscles. Okay, excellent. Again, nice, slow, and controlled. And the very final one, if you lie down, I think, Stephen, if you lie down with your head facing the camera again, this is the I, T, and W, or some people call them I's, Y's, and T's. So forehead onto the ground. This is great for those of us that struggle to get into streamline in this position, so can't raise the hands up off the floor. This is the way to get better at it. Okay, so keeping your hands close together, raise your arms up. Good. Hold them there for 3 seconds. Then bring them all the way to the side into like a T position. Good, that's the T. Hold them there for 3 seconds. And then you're going to bend your elbows to make a W position and try and keep your wrists higher than your elbows. So drop your elbows down a little bit. Very good. Hold there for 3 seconds. And then push your arms straight out over your head again, back into that original I position. There we go. Hold for 3 seconds and then relax. That's 1 repetition. Don't worry if you can't do all of that. You can just do individual bits of it. You could just do that straight up and back down again. You could do the T's out to the side from the floor, up and back down again. Or you could do the W's from the side, okay? Or just build two of them together. But that will develop strength and stability through the back, okay? And the back of your shoulders, and that will help streamline. Right, that's it for the shoulder. Very good, Stephen, well done, model pupil. We're going to move you on to the hip, where we might see a little bit, Stephen struggle a little bit. So let's show some mobility exercises for the hip. So if you come into standing, Stephen, keep facing forwards. We're going to do a lunge series. So we're going to do lunges in different directions. So first, forward lunge. Now a lunge is making sure the back knee or the leg that gets left behind stays nice and straight, okay? So don't be tempted to bend it. Good, keep that nice and straight. And then the leg that's being left behind is getting a good stretch, okay? Then step back into your original position. And then you're going to go sideways. Good. And again, see the leg that's getting left behind? That's staying nice and straight. So just simply forward lunge, side lunge, and you just keep going in each direction, swapping legs over. And again, 4 or 5 in each direction is more than enough. Okay, now remember we looked at squatting as a hip mobility, so we're going to use that as a mobility exercise now. So Stephen, show us your best squat. Good, and literally just going down into it, and if you can drop further than that, so if you almost bring your feet a little bit wider, Stephen, wider apart, that'll allow you to drop further down, really get your bum to the floor, and then you can put your elbows inside your knees. Then you can put a bit of pressure just to open out your knees a little bit. Good. And you can just play around with that position and see what it feels like rocking from one side to the other. So the key with squatting, if you're struggling to get down, put your feet wider. And over time, you bring your feet in a little bit. Okay? Good. Now we're going to show you, you can combine that with a streamline, actually. That's Stephen was about to show you there. Go into streamline from there. That is like master's level mobility and activation right there. Okay, so go into push-up plank again for me, Stephen. This is called a mountain climber or Spider-Man. You just bring that foot up outside of you, okay, and then just change over. It again really helps open out the hips. Good. Okay, you could add rotation of the upper body into this as well. Yeah, Stephen's just pointing out there, make sure the back leg stays nice and straight. Good. And again, that helps open the back hip as well as the front hip. Excellent. Okay, that's all the mobility for the hip, nice and simple. Now I'm going to show you some activation. First one, single leg balancing or single leg squat. So Stephen, if you face the camera, stand on your right leg, okay, and simply, if that's hard, that's good enough. Okay, if standing on one leg is nice and easy, what you can do is try and practice squatting then. So just bend your knee and nice and slowly down. And what you want to do, work hard to keep that knee over your foot. Okay, you don't want it to come in the way. You want to try and keep it as smooth as possible. Don't worry about how much you come down. Very good, right? Really important this. Get a lot of the guys to do this, particularly for starts. You don't have good single leg balance, your start's going to be a bit tricky. Okay. Good, well done, Stephen. Go sideways for this one. This is called an arabesque, okay? So you stand on one leg and you try and keep your other leg nice and straight and you move it with your body while bending forwards. Very good. And again, this is super important for starting. If you look at that from a starting on the blocks position, that kind of gets pretty close to it. If you're not good at balancing like that, again, your stability on the blocks is going to be a little bit tricky. But nothing else, it helps strengthen around the hip. Whether you're a swimmer, a runner, rugby player, cyclist, doesn't matter. You need to be good at these things. It gives you good hip health and it takes the pressure off your lower back. Okay, the next one then is just looking at banded side steps. So you take a small band, put it around your knees, or if you only have one, just put it around your ankles. Stephen's got 2 because I gave him 2 last week for his own pre-pull. And then you're just going to bend a little bit in a slight squat position, not too deep a squat, and then you're just going to step sideways. Okay, nice controlled steps, just switching on all the muscles around the hips. The band just gives us a bit of resistance, and then you come back the way. Great. And then you can even do that walking forwards. Good. So nice little hip activation routine going backwards. Excellent. Okay, take those off, Stephen. The final one, again, this is a bit advanced, but jumping. You wouldn't think jumping is important in swimming, but it's super important in life. And the qualities that you have to maintain good jumps helps with like pushing off the wall, that kind of stuff. So you can practice your jumps, but more importantly, practice your landing. So Stephen, 2 legs up, 2 legs down. Jump, and what you're trying to do is land with as quiet a landing as you can. So nice soft knees, and trying to keep your knees over your feet. And when you're good at that, you can do a jump with a turn. Good. Try and jump and turn at the same time, 90 degrees. Excellent. Perfect. Good. You can jump forwards, jump backwards, but all progressions, okay? Simple. That's it. And all the time, trying to do what Stephen is struggling to do and keep your knees over your feet. All right? Oh, he's got sweat on now. Okay, that's the hips. A little bit shorter than the shoulders, but just super important. Now, the final one is the back. I haven't broke it down into lower back or upper back, just call it the back, because you move one area, you help the other, vice versa, all right? You can bias the upper back and the lower back, it doesn't matter. Let's just get those back moving. So, first one is that kneeling rotation that you saw Stephen doing to check whether his back was mobile. So, onto your hands and knees, one hand behind the other, no, one hand behind the head, sorry, and then rotate up, all the way up, and back down. Good. Excellent. All the way up. Excellent. Okay. Nice mobility exercise that. You change hands, obviously. Good. Next exercise, if you go into standing. Yeah, I think we can see you there. Hands overhead. Yeah, move your camera up. That's better. Good. Excellent. Hands overhead. Okay, and then you just do some side bends. A good thing to do here, this is what good is for your foam roller. Put the foam roller between your hands and then just bend sideways, and you're just lengthening everything out down your side. Good, or hold it end to end, Stephen. Yeah, that's it, perfect. Or kickboard, pull boy, that works quite nicely for this. Okay. Next one is doing a lunge. We've done lunges before, but you're going to add a rotation. Sorry, leave it there. Thanks, Stephen. We can see that then. Good. So lunge forward and then rotate to the side of the leading leg. So rotate it. Good. And again, you can do that hands on head, hands in streamline, hands in front. All as a variation. Okay. Streamline one's quite hard. Good. And then we do the same thing, but with the side bend. So lunge again. Do the forward lunge, sorry, Stephen. Yeah, and then you bend overhead like the side bend you were doing. That's it, over to the side of the leading leg. Good. Perfect. So just a bit more dynamic that. Okay, good. And that's it for mobility. There's a lot more exercises, but just trying to keep it nice and simple. Now, activation, okay? First way to activate your back or your trunk is a side plank. Ideally, you can do it like Stephen's doing here. If you can't, you can do it starting on your knees, and you can do it on your elbow. If you're doing it on your elbow and you're on the pool deck, just put your kickboard underneath your elbow just to protect it, or your towel or whatever. Okay, or you can bend your knees, Stephen, just to show them the short lever one. Good, that's good enough as well. Okay, now lying flat onto your side for Stephen, facing us. I'm just going to do some leg raises here. This is a great one for trunk control. Keep your other hand flat onto the floor just to balance you. Yeah, that's it there. And then you're going to raise your top leg up just a little bit, hold it there, and then bring the bottom leg up to join it. That's hard. And then lower the bottom leg on its own, and then lower the top leg on its own. Good. Nice side plank activation, okay? Or you can do 2 legs together if you're really good. Good. Next one, while you're on the floor, Stephen, we'll just do the pelvic exercises. So go sideways. Everyone likes to call these angry cat, happy cat, cat, camel, whatever. It's about trying to get your lower back and your pelvis to move. Now, what you want to try and do is keep your shoulders nice and still, and then tilt your pelvis all the way back, so you arch, you curl your back, and then drop it forward so you arch like that. So go all the way down, Stephen, good, and then all the way up. And this looks basic, but you'll be surprised how many people find this difficult. Super important for underwater kick, that undulation of your trunk and your pelvis for the underwater kick. Guys that aren't good at underwater kick can't do this, okay? And then if you go onto your back, Stephen, we'll show everyone the dead bugs. So this is the opposite. It's trying to keep the pelvis still. So keep everything flat against the floor as you move your arms and legs. You can do opposite arm, opposite leg. If that's too difficult, you can do legs only. One leg at a time, maybe, Stephen. Good. If it's too hard to reach the leg out, keep your knee bent and just drop your heel to the ground. Yeah, that's it. Good. Okay. Excellent. And then the final one is if you go into standing, take that water bottle again, Stephen. Hold it overhead. Good. And then you're just going to either walk with that overhead, trying to keep it nice and still, or lunge. Do you know what a really good trick is if you get your kickboard and balance it like a waiter's tray and put your water bottle on top of that. And if you can lunge with that overhead and not dropping it, you're doing really well. So you don't need a heavy weight to create activation. It can be about challenging stability and control. All right? And that is the final exercise of the final list. So no more things to go through with you. Hopefully that's given you a good sort of run through, quite a lot of exercises, quite a lot of time. Sorry, we've probably run over a little bit, but pretty comprehensive. And you don't have to do all of that as people. You could do, right, today I'm going to do shoulders. So I'll pick 3 of those shoulder exercises and that's all I'm going to do. Tomorrow I'm going to do hips. The next day I'm going to do back. Actually, I've got a little bit more time. I'm going to do some shoulder and hip. Okay, I'm not great at streamline, so I'm going to do 3 shoulder sessions a week and 2 hips or 1 hip, depending on what you're good at. Okay, as we said, we hope to follow this up with a little bit of a resource with some of them as photographs and videos, but you can always watch this video back for content. Okay, so back to Alan. Thanks for watching. I hope that was helpful.
JT, that was awesome. I'm still stuck at that first exercise. Checking my streamline. That was terrific. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, JT. Absolutely top-notch stuff. Gold dust, I think, was one of the words that I wrote down. It's just great to be able to learn from people who are very much in the field doing this on a daily basis. And for the swimmers on the call and for the coaches, of course, not bad to have an Olympic medalist as your demonstrator on a Sunday evening. So absolutely terrific. I was just checking the chat to see if there were any questions in there. I mean, I think the actual exercises and the demonstrations speak for themselves, but just give you the opportunity for a minute or two if anybody's got any questions to shove them in the chat, either for JT or for Stephen, and we'll see if we can handle them. No pressure if there aren't. We'll certainly circulate the recording and the information in due course if you've nothing to ask. This is the embarrassing silence, but should I put some music on to keep you occupied?
There's a good question there about how long to do this before a race.
Great question.
You know, as I said, like this is about just warming your body up. So you would do this before you do your warm up in the pool. So whatever your normal warm up before you race, you would just do this sort of 15, 20 minutes before you get in the water. If you then have a long time between your warm up and your race, you can do little elements of it. Although I don't want to cross over into priming before racing because that's a slightly different entity. But effectively, you know, you can use some of these exercises as a priming, which is just a fancy way of saying, again, getting your body ready to race or train or compete, whatever we want to call it. Hopefully that's it.
Thanks, JT. I think there's probably, that was, I'm guessing, where the line of questioning was going. And we are going to look at priming in a separate session anyway. So I think very much following on from that, we'll make sure that both of those are covered off, because they are really important. And JT makes a great point about, if you're at a meet, doing what Stephen's just demonstrated before the introductory warm-up, if you like, you may have other things that you need to do or want to do beyond that if you're waiting around for a long time before your race. So great line of questioning and some good information there for you. Anything else? I see there's one there. From Liam, any different proportion of release, mobilization, activation for racing or training?
You know, I think when you static stretch and when you release muscles, you actually switch them off. So when it's coming to racing, you really want to focus more on the mobilization, which, remember, is an active movement, but particularly the activation element. That would be the key components to it. So what I would normally say is, if you're going to dedicate 15 minutes to pre-pool, whether that's for racing, whatever, I would only spend 2, maximum 4 minutes doing foam roller work. I would then, you know, try and spread the mobility activation kind of evenly, but probably bias the activation. But it depends. If you're somebody who's quite stiff, probably do want to spend a bit of time mobilizing those joints. If you're somebody who's really mobile, you then don't want to spend, or don't need to spend, a lot of time mobilizing those joints. So you want to spend more time activating them. So it is a little bit individual, but yeah, I would put the least amount of time on rolling, not because it isn't important or helpful, but you know, I think we do quite a lot of that as it is. Rolling is actually quite good to do after training or at home or whatever, as a standalone session. So hopefully that answers that.
Thanks, JT. I've just been sent a picture. I understand that there are a group of swimmers doing this in the pool cafe in Shetland at the Clickerman Leisure Centre. So great job, all of you. Thank you for participating and for actively participating, it looks like, from the picture that I was sent by Peter. So that's terrific stuff. Well done. There aren't any more questions in the chat. Stephen, anything you want to add finally, just as some points or advice?
Yeah, I suppose the thing is, it's like a lot of things. The more you practice it, the better you get at it. And the more you practice it, it'll become second nature. And as JT said, there is a variety of stuff, and you don't need to do it all at once. But if you do it little and often, it'll be just like knowing all your drills and everything in the pool. You'll know all the pre-pool, post-pool exercises the more you do it. So I'd advise popping it in your routine for like your pool sessions, and like in a few weeks, it'll be second nature to you. Great
point. Practice makes perfect, or as they sometimes say, perfect practice makes perfect. But we're not looking for perfection. We're just looking for good habits, as Stephen and JT have said. And hopefully there's a lot of content there from what you've done tonight, and probably made some notes, mental or otherwise, and certainly the follow-up stuff that we give you will cement that, reinforce it in your minds. Scott's asking about that, and yeah, we are going to do it, Scott, on the recording on paper or on an attachment, and probably some video stuff to support that as well. It's our intention to continue with this beyond just people who've signed up to tonight's session. And that's us. Great. Thank you very much. It's Sunday night. It's nearly 7 o'clock. We're well into the second quarter of all the NFL games that are on. So good luck to you if you have a fantasy team. If you don't, good luck to you unless you're an Indianapolis Colts supporter. And we'll see you again very, very soon on the Academy online sessions. Thanks, JT. Thanks, Stephen. Thanks, Jamie, for signing everybody in safely. Good night. Thank you.